Hi everyone, Scott with CyberScribe.org, and in this video I'm going to be talking about and introducing Cockpit. And Cockpit is a web-based graphical interface for Linux servers, as you can see here. And it says it's intended for everyone, and I think that's pretty true. So basically what it is it's a program that's installed by default on a lot of operating systems already, the RPM distributions up here, and Debian and Ubuntu as well. So those are all available and even supported. Here you see that. So pretty wide, like just these operating systems themselves have a pretty heavy and wide adoption just in the Linux community in general, and especially in the server space when we're talking about administering servers, which is basically what this is. This isn't for workstations or anything like that. This is, I would say, for headless servers where normally you would have to SSH into these boxes and run commands and kind of just see what's going on and do your work from there. So what Cockpit does is it allows you to access that same command line, but it also gives you, I'll just click through some of these pictures here. It also gives you a little bit more tactility, a little bit kind of organization of things, kind of a more visual way to see about going through things, and it's pretty good. It's pretty interesting. So whether this has or gets wide adoption is maybe another story, but I think it's pretty useful, and I use it for a good deal of my own things now. So I'll go through one of my own servers that I just set up for a test, and we can kind of just take a look at how it looks as things are running. As I said, it's already installed in a lot of different servers, or not servers, but Linux operating systems, and a lot of the time you don't even have to, like, so for example, install Cockpit. A lot of the time it will already be installed. But, and I will put a link to this page at my, in the comments, not the comments, but in my notes below. And you can just go here, and if you do not have Cockpit, you can just install it and get it started. So really, all you need to do to get to at least, and every system's different, so you might have to do one thing or another different on a different system. But really, if it's already installed, which it shows that it's at least installed on some of these. I think Fedora and Red Hat is installed, so I'm using Red Hat now. And if it's not installed, at least it's available. So you can just use this as your guide and just double check if you have it installed or not. So let me take a. So what you'll see, this is really small. But basically this is what you'll see, and just kind of highlight here. This is just above your login when you SSH into, it'll show you like that Cockpit's running, that the console's available. So that's basically it. That might be too small to see, but basically the point is when you log in via an SSH session, you'll get an indication that Cockpit is installed and available, or installed and running. So this one here is already running. And if it's not running, it will give you the command to say, use this command to get Cockpit working. And that is in my Red Hat experience. And that's what we're going to move over to now. So this is Cockpit. And what you're doing is you just put your username, in, you log in. And I'll kind of just go through, just do a little overview of the items on the left side there. Here. All right. So a couple different things. Top left over here is, you can see, this is where you can add, you should be able to add different hosts. I wonder if, oh, okay. So you see this web console is running in limited access mode. So I'm going to turn on administrative access. So just be aware too, you have the ability to kind of restrict what's able to be used or not. So this is me elevating to sudo. Gotta be. Okay, so you see there, add new host. So basically what you can do there is just add, let's just do pg.deep. Deepdivesec.com is just my personal domain that I use. It's not connected to anything outside. And this is kind of why I like it, is that you, so now I'm on my AWX3, but I can go to my Postgres box, and I'm not going to turn on admin access here, but you have the same things, even like a terminal. And then subscription software updates, but I'll talk more about that on the AWX3 box. Okay, so first I'll just briefly go through these items on the left, and then I'll talk about different cockpit applications, and those are kind of additions that you can use to add a little bit more functionality to Cockpit itself. So here, overview, health gives you a little bit of items to look at here. If you have failing services, let's just look at this. Sometimes just thinking about speed here. So this is just something, I think this is a Red Hat, like a bug, where there's a different type of logging daemon here for this that you use instead of this, and then you basically stop and disable. So I'm going to do that now, just because otherwise it's going to keep going. Usage, so there's some graphs over here, and this is just for the server itself. So there's a older application called Dashboard, which we'll talk about later, which it will give you all of your or however many servers you have here in one graph. It's pretty nice. So that's part of your overview. Configuration, join domain. That's pretty interesting if you can join like a Active Directory domain or whatever else. And just basically just some normal things that you would think about when you're looking, just basic info. So here, logs. I mean, they're logs. So, you can search for them, which is kind of nice. Error and above, critical, info, and then you get a ton of them. So, identifier, a lot of different types of stuff. So that's pretty interesting. And storage is install NFS. That's pretty nice feature, and gives you some more of a visual representation, comparing to just going like a df-h to find out how much space is and what's using it there. Networking, so you also can use your firewall and add rules and zones and things like that, so that's pretty useful. You can also add, for example, like virtual machines. You can add like a bridge that will create like a virtual network. So for like my 172.2100, my virtual machines will be assigned one of those IPs instead of the kind of default separate network, if you want to do that. Add VLANs, team. This is my point. There's kind of a good amount of things and functionality that you can do in here. I'll go to Podman maybe last. And accounts, again, create new accounts. Pretty good stuff. This is probably not going to be available without administrative access. So just be aware. There's probably, if you didn't have administrative access, you're going to have something that indicates to you that you don't have administrative access. Next one, services. And you can just see here what services are running, what is not. And you should be able to restart, reload. So you changing a config, you reload or restart, stop some things. You can check what's happening So if you have some things going or not, you can even get, for example, if one of your services crashes, you should be able to get like a health warning here, and then you can go directly to that service like I did earlier. Applications. This is a little bit of what I was talking about, where there's a couple more things you can add on. So Podman is basically Docker for Red Hat, and it's pretty cool actually. So I'm gonna actually start this now, and then we'll talk about it in a second as I go through these other things. But then storage, again, managing, and then the subscription manager, that's for Red Hat. And then down here, these are obviously the tools, diagnostic reports. If you need to, I think that's maybe more for technical support. If you're going to be sending somebody like a SOS report or something like that. And your kdump status. So that's all in here. SELinux, this is a nice thing to, I think it's just changing a config like name in the, for example, if you were like SSHD, you just enforcing well, let's see, permissive, okay. So you can change your SELinux policy there. So a lot of times when you're doing things, you'll find some problems with SELinux blocking something for one reason or another, usually like a permission type thing. And so what I've seen here sometimes is that it'll give you, like if it finds one of those issues, it'll give you kind of example commands to run and to use, and then you can kind of like allow your application to get through SELinux without turning it off. So it kind of has some little helper information over there. Software updates is exactly what you think it would be, and it automatically starts going through them. So you'll see that here. And then it'll just tell you if you want to install those packages or not. Subscriptions, this is a Red Hat thing, and that's just my stuff there. So for example, if you're on Fedora or Ubuntu, you're not going to have that subscriptions thing. But this is another interesting thing here. This is just the a console where you can do whatever you would do if you were SSH'd in. You got a couple different ways of doing that, appearance-wise. So that's a quick overview of Cockpit right there. So what I'm going to do here is just show you that there's a little bit of extensibility to it. Let me talk about Podman, because Podman is, I guess it's installed by default, at least on Red Hat here. And what it is you can, and then user Podman service is also available. That's probably the preferred way instead of running as root or like sudo here. But this is pretty cool. And so just for example, registries like docker.io. So you can go here and you can get, like, if you want Alpine Linux, I think it's like 5 megs or something. And then we can just download it right now and just start it up. And it's pretty cool, actually. You can just run it. And just give some things here. Whoop. Okay. We'll just run it. I just want to, you just get to a terminal and just, when it starts up, you'll, okay. Well, there's 2 Alpines. Okay. Console. There you go. It already started up. ls dir, well, not dir, but I mean, this is it. So that's what's kind of interesting. And you have another one. So it makes, I think, like this makes working with containers pretty more user-friendly too, because a lot of the container stuff is the same thing. It's just command line, like docker run-it, you know, to get some interactive terminals on your containers. So that's pretty useful as well. Other different applications is you have, well, there's a couple of them. There's a virtual machine manager, the session recording. Let me just go and and then do this. So if I go sudo dnf install cockpit-star, I'll see what's available. And I'm not going to, well, I will install these. Why not? We can just go through them after I install and pause it a little bit. So, Cockpit Composer, what is this? This is where you can create Linux images. So it's kind of nice where you say, okay, I only want a Postgres server on here. Then you just add that to the image builder. You build that image, and then that's it. Pretty nice. Cockpit dashboard, that is as I was saying before, that's a dashboard that kind of aggregates all of your items, your hosts. So it will display your hosts, CPU, memory, disk, and network on one graph instead of multiple ones. So that's it. It's an older thing, but it does have that going for it. Cockpit doc is just the documentation. Cockpit-machines is for virtual machines. So that's pretty cool. Sometimes I've noticed using Virsh, V-I-R-S-H, trying to create virtual machines and do things like that on there was, it's a little bit, at least for me, to get a little bit more difficult than just, I was basically trained on the point and click with that. So that's useful. And then PCP is not the drug, of course, but it's a performance copilot, and it's just a framework to gather metrics about the system. And so session recording is an interesting one. So this is where you can set things up to have somebody creates an SSH session that their activity during that session will be recorded. So that's really useful. I mean, for security purposes, even for if you think about like troubleshooting and things like that, just to see like, well, what did you do if you're working in a team of people? And this would be very useful because when you're doing that troubleshooting stuff, you're not always thinking about conveying what you're doing to other people. So that's kind of really useful to kind of break down the whole tribal knowledge issue that a lot of organizations face. So here, I think session recordings would be pretty good. Machines, virtual machines, that'd be pretty good too. And dashboard and composer, I think they all would be pretty useful as well. And then documentation is always good to have too. So I'm just going to install all these, and then I'll pause and we'll come back and just look briefly through these when they all get installed. And we're back, and the other applications have installed. So what you need to do is restart Cockpit, and that will basically have you relog in again. Just to be aware too, for example, virtual machines, you'll see QEMU and libvirtd and things like that. That's going to, like, the dependencies for that will be installed too. So that's what's kind of nice. It's like a one-stop shop there. All right, restarting Cockpit now. And all right, we'll reconnect. And we'll take a look at the new items. So you see apps, dashboard, image builder, and then you will see virtual machines and session recording. So these all have their own configs and things like that. I'm not really going to go through them. Maybe I'll just go bottom to top, just to kind of give you a little brief thing of what they look like at the very least. So what's nice is, as far as I can tell, you can do all your configurations within Cockpit itself. I mean, that's the whole point. So I played around with this very, very limitedly for the session recording. So, you might need to look a little bit more into it. But it looks promising. I mean, like I said, that's to be good to have for just to see what people are doing security-wise. Also, your whole knocking out some tribal knowledge by actually seeing what people are doing for troubleshooting and things like that. Okay. And then we'll just go to virtual machines. And here, if you don't see this, it'll it'll ask you libvirtd is not, the service that enables virtualization is not running. Would you like to start it? But it just showed up here. So my experience has varied on some of these things. That's why I'm kind of, it looks, last time I did this, it showed up a little different. So just, be aware that this might change a little bit. And let's just go all the way. This is, okay, so that's what it was there. So libvirt, that's the libvirt daemon. So you're just going to start it on boot. And then we'll get back to the, then you can kind of have full control over your virtual machines, starting, administering, things like that. And this hung up on me last time too. So just to be aware, like I said, sometimes these things don't play well, but I think it plays well enough to really be useful. So let me just pause this one more time and then get back to everything. Okay, back. It just took a little bit longer. That, after a certain amount of time. So here, I'm not going to do this, but you can options to download an OS or put it on your local machine and then just install it that way. And a couple different ways to do it. I've had more with Session. I've had more success with Session installs, but it's been a while. So I think, like I said, sometimes you just have to play around with these things enough. But you can also import your VMs. That's good too. So there's that. And then two more things to look at, and then we will be done. So Image Builder, this is pretty cool. Again, let's just do this. Hopefully it doesn't take forever again. And it looks like it is not. So what it's doing, it's going to refresh a bunch of packages. And I thought this was pretty cool. It's just worth at least seeing right here. And we'll look at dashboard last. You'll see how it's kind of similar. So blueprints are the things that just tell you, determine what's included in the image. And this is just what I wanted to show here. It's pretty cool. Is you can just select what you want to install and then add that to the image itself. So hopefully this shows itself in a little bit. There we go. And basically what you do is you just go and, you can search. So I was talking about Postgres before, so we'll just search for that and when it does. So say you want a Postgres server, well, just go and add it. And it'll populate the dependencies. And then what you'll do is, let's just say commit. Do you want to commit for a Postgres server for this one image? And you do that, create image, type, and then this is kind of cool. You can just see what you want to use. So depending on your platform, and probably uploading to AWS as well if that was if that was your choice. And then it just adds it to the queue. And you go to the queue, you wait about a couple more seconds, and it'll show up image build in progress. So now we can look. So basically the point is there should be stuff happening on this machine here. Remember, I have two here. Let's see what the deal is with Postgres here. Reconnect. Login. So what happened there is sometimes it says when you log in, there's a checkbox to say use this for other accounts, and I have different passwords, and that's what we're talking about there. But back to here, and this is the dashboard. So this here is kind of the new, like the feature that's similar to the dashboard. The only thing that's different, we're looking at the dashboard here as well. The only thing that's different is the overview you get like, you know, machine by machine, where the dashboard you get all of them together. So you see the green and the blue line there. So, you know, AWX3 is doing a little bit of CPU, but we should see more disk. Yeah, see there's a lot more disk stuff going on there. So I think that's pretty useful, just to have it kind of scrolling across the screen. I don't think, I mean, there might be some other kind of way that you can kind of export this information. I mean, if not from this dashboard, from somewhere else. But anyway, I think that's kind of just a nice thing to have, where you can see how all your machines are performing in one location. So that's the dashboard app. And that was it, at least for now, and at least like for what is readily available on a Red Hat Enterprise Linux server distribution. So that's Cockpit. Like I said, you know, graphical administration tool. You still have your command line. I mean, another thing that's interesting is I find myself on this command line a good amount when I'm doing things, just because these are nice to have, but I think sometimes these are kind of just like a more visual aid, if nothing else. But I would still say that the visual aid is nice. And the other thing is, if I can just switch from one to the other like this, and then I just go into that terminal. I mean, technically you can do all this with SSH anyway, but you know, I think the ability to have things organized in here like this, where some things are saved, you know, for example, you can have like 5, 6, 8, 10, 20 hosts on here and just kind of go in between them. And if you think about that with SSH, you probably might need some type of other, you know, like where you're going to remember all those host names as you SSH to them. So it has its benefits. And like I said, the terminal is always there too. So that's all I had for giving an overview of Cockpit. It seems to have gone longer than what I was expecting, but I think it's a pretty good utility to have, and I think it's pretty useful, and it's helped me out. So just wanted to kind of share that experience. So that's all I had for this video, and stay tuned for future videos.